Well, I wasn't expecting this, but thanks to the generosity of a friend who kindly loaned me 70 quid, I managed to get my grubby little bits on Space Marine 2, so I guess we can do what I wanted to do this week and cover the long-awaited sequel to one of my favourite video games. The original Space Marine was a delightful hack-and-slash shooter set in the grimdark 40k verse that followed Ultramarines Captain Titus as he and his squad attempted to fight back against a massive orc war, and later the dark forces of chaos, because of course it's chaos, it's always chaos. The combat was fun, there was some clunkiness, sure, but I felt that it wound up giving a nice level of weight and impact to the feel of things, and the story was pretty good with characters that were a bit more than just default Space Marine 2605. Not by much granted, but still. There was a decent chemistry between the leads, the orc war boss was fun, and despite having truly abysmal boss fights, I still love revisiting the game even all these years later. It has flaws of course, like the aforementioned terrible boss fights, I mean really they are just awful, and certain gear in the campaign was being added to your arsenal way too late to be useful, plus it forgot to give the orc slugger boys their, sluggers, the thing the unit's named after. But ultimately I find that even over 10 years later it still looks good, plays well, and is fun, so I was looking forward to Space Marine 2 as you could expect. The downside of the first game being as good as it was though does mean that the sequel will need to bring its A game to compete.
Did you say crash?
Wait, no, wait.
I can do that!
You boner. Yeah, Space Marine 2 hasn't exactly brought said A game, more like it's brought its, I guess, C- game. Like, it's still pretty much a passing grade, but I and its parents share some disappointment in this mess before us. Don't quote me on grades, by the way, I left school when like 2012 grading systems changed. So I welcome you, my friends, enemies, and various entities, to another video. Today we'll be looking at Space Marine 2 and why I think it's a very, mid-game. Oh boy, better call the Order Hereticus because I'm out here doing some heresy. I'll say this up front, no hate to anyone who genuinely does love Space Marine 2, these are just my thoughts on the subject. Well, mostly mine. I suppose the Imperium heard of my impending heresy, so I have a Space Marine keeping an eye on me. I guess they couldn't afford the Inquisitor this time?
Yeah, budget cuts. Now, you better behave, Missy. I have 8 bolt rounds with your name on them if you unfairly judge Space Marine 2.
Don't you worry your little metal skull. I'll be as fair today as an Imperial agent would be towards someone suspected of heresy and showed a 70 quid AAA video game exactly the respect and understanding it deserves.
Good. I and the Emperor are glad to hear... Wait, that means... a throne.
Space Marine 2, where to begin?
At the beginning, maybe?
Genius. Well, let's first look at how the game compares to what came before. It's third-person hack-and-slash with shooting elements, and it does feel like a genuine upgrade in this regard. The standard controls are what you would expect for movement and camera: left stick move, right stick looky-loo. To fire your gun it's R2, to melee it's R1, you aim with L2, you zoom in with ranged weapons with L3, and R3 provides a sort of soft lock-on so you can duel larger priority targets in the heat of battle. If you weaken a baddie and it glows red, you can perform an execution in a oh so delightfully Space Marine way, which sees Titus absolutely demolish a target in a way that tells me someone has been skipping their anger management classes.
Holy terror! Those Thousand Suns are walking party poppers. Using L1, you can block incoming blue highlighted attacks, and using X, you can dodge. If you perfectly time a dodge away from an unblockable orange attack, you can repose with your pistol, which deals boosted damage and restores lost armor while staggering larger enemy combatants. You can also lob grenades with the circle button. On the PlayStation controller, we don't know what the controls are for the heretical systems. Probably B, filthy Microsofticus.
Hey, whoa, I mean you're not wrong, but still. Nah, I kid, no hate. I mean you deserve hate, you Microsoft scum, but no hate.
Hang on, don't you also own an Xbox?
Anyway, that all-important weight and crunch is still very much present, and it's been an absolute delight being able to engage with this on a modern console, with the frankly beautiful graphics to make the already bloody visceral combat of the first game all the more of a grim spectacle and in the best possible way.
I agree. I've already put so much time into this glorious game, purging Xenos and heretics for countless hours, from the basic bolt pistol to the exquisite plasma incinerator and the melee. Oh my sweet Emperor, the melee. The power sword is my favourite. What say you, Ronica?
Ducks. Oh wait, you meant relevant to the game. Yeah, I have to agree, the power sword is absolutely great. I adore the moveset and the buff you can apply to it to boost its damage, and I just think it looks really cool. The chainsword is also fun though, simple yet effective. The combat knife is an actual weapon option now, and it's what you'd expect, weaker but faster. And then there's the thunder hammer, slower but hits like a dump truck full of your personal failures, and yes, the chainsword looks cool, the knife looks cool, and the hammer looks cool. Fuck, everything looks cool. The game really gets the look of Warhammer, the environments, the guns, the character models, and the enemies all look fantastic and lore accurate. accurate and really add to the immersion of the experience. I'm also glad that this game includes a photo mode because I love playing around with these and taking snapshots, it's just the best thing.
Smiling Titus.
Oh yeah, you can change the facial expressions of Space Marines in the camera mode and then create this delightfully cursed visual that haunts the depths of my nightmares. It's horrifying and I adore it. It's like the 90s Mario Bros movie. I'm disgusted but I can't look away, it's lovely. It's ridiculous and it adds some much needed humour to the game, as sadly the game is sorely lacking in intentional comedic moments.
Heresy. There is one intentionally funny moment.
The command console is posted at the edge of the observation platform, and Lagos will attend to you shortly. Doubtful.
A classic.
Okay, you win this round, Fanboy SquarePants. Now back to the combat, since we've got a lot to discuss, and I ain't paying for your late Thunderhawk out of here if we stay too long. I'm rather happy with how the game does expand upon the combat system provided by the original game. Sure, it's the same basic formula, you're still fighting countless hordes of aliens, only exchange orcs for gribblies, or tyranids as boring people call them like the cowards they are, but it feels a lot more dynamic now, as dodging or using the newly added block feature at just the right moment leaves the enemy open for a counter, which I found kept me a lot more engaged throughout the combat sequences. Plus the game makes use of a Bloodborne-esque rally mechanic. How it works is, when you take damage you have a brief window in which if you kill an enemy, you recover your lost health. Obviously this is only really going to work if you have the easily disposable enemies surrounding you, and late game this becomes even more of a problem when even the basic mobs of enemies will start holding up shields, preventing you from killing them in a single hit. Unless of course you have the Thunder Hammer, but to get the Thunder Hammer you basically have to get all the way through the game at least once. Either way, I'm fine with the system being there. Melee combat is great is the long story short, but that doesn't mean that the guns aren't also a blast to play with. Honestly, there's a really good selection, even if some of the weapons are just worst options in every scenario, like the Marksman Carbine or Bolt Sniper for example, but I think the good outweighs the bad. Your standard bolt rifle hits hard, often and accurately, the Stalker Bolter returns and is every bit as satisfying to snipe with.
Don't forget the Plasma Incinerator and the Heavy Bolt Rifle. Nothing is more satisfying than overcharging your plasma weapons and causing absolute mayhem, or just holding the line with the Heavy Bolt Rifle, mowing down hordes of Termagants or Zangors. Satisfying crunches every time every bolt round goes off.
No argument here that the guns are mostly a blast to use, but we can't forget the multi-melter and to a lesser extent its baby brother the regular melter rifle. It hits like a tank and melts like a melting thing. I'm a writer. Honestly, it can be hard to articulate just how satisfying it is to have this beast in hand and reduce a horde of gribblies to ash. Now, all this damage you can deal to enemies is wonderful and glorious, but what happens when the enemies take out their frustrations on you and you're left with 2 milliliters of blood left in your entire body? Well, like the original game, you have both health and armor. Armor depletes before you take health damage, but regenerates after a time. Health damage itself doesn't restore on its own at all, and sadly, gone are the days of using brutal executions to restore your own health. Now it only restores armor. Plus, unlike the first game, you can't instantly execute weaker enemies such as low-level Xenos or cultists to quickly restore armor, so you need to search for medical kits if you want to keep your health ticking over.
What I would have done personally is when you execute stronger foes, for example, the Scarab Occult Terminators, you should gain full shield and some health back, or vice versa. Still, I absolutely love ripping their heads off.
Oh yeah, I won't deny that the executions are still fun to perform, and I am glad that we at least still get something back from them, so there's a tactical reason to do them. Honestly, the gameplay, whilst it does have some flaws and bits we think could have been done a bit better, it's still pretty fun and a delight to engage with on a moment-to-moment level. We even see the return of Fury Mode, which is great, or you know, it would be if it was any good. It doesn't allow you to automatically execute enemies whilst active anymore. I'm not going to dress it up, that just sucks. The only thing it does whilst active is regenerate your health, which, you know, it's useful, but it's a downgrade, plain and simple. I think it's been retooled since the game treats it as a class ability for the story mode, and class abilities start out fully charged, for reasons known only to the Emperor himself. I really don't get why. In the original game you had to unlock Fury, then build it up, and it didn't last long, so it was a very brief power trip and you still needed to be careful with it. In Space Marine 2 it's ready as soon as you enter a mission, and it's just not very good. And of course I wouldn't be the douchebag you all know and some of you love if I didn't bring up some other issues. I had the game glitch in such a way that Titus just wouldn't move, he'd stand in his idle pose for like 4 seconds at a time, which in the heat of battle isn't great. Server issues are rampant. I've had about 4 joining server loading screens that never ended, which made me need to reboot the game, plus the matchmaking's a bit fucky, but we'll get there when we get there. Late game you'll be engaging in missions that supposedly take place without a canonical trip back to the hub for resupplying, but somehow Titus will have changed sidearm, main gun and melee weapon because fuck my build apparently. Look, the chainsword is fine, but if I end one mission with the Thunder Hammer, I'd rather like to start the next one with it, you know? Usually the game is nice generous enough to leave you a selection of weapons before most combat arenas, but not always. Like the first game, there are moments where you can use jump packs, however the controls are a bit different. Now the button that's usually reserved for your all-important fury, which becomes the only way to regenerate your health when items are scarce, gets overridden for the jump command, which in the first game wouldn't have happened, since in the first game the jump pack integrated the jump command to the dodge command. If you tap lightly you could still do a little dodge, but pressing and holding would do a jump. You already had the perfect system, Space Marine 2, why did you fuck it up? Plus there is one less instance of being able to use the jump pack in the story mode, and the game won't even let you have the full fun with it that you're supposed to, because in the second instance you start using a jump pack, then suddenly dust happens and clogs it, and now you can't use it because fuck you.
Yeah, that was cheap. I mean, I personally would have thought that battling a Carnifex with a freaking jump pack would have been absolutely epic, but I guess you do you, Space Marine 2.
I've also noticed that the game doesn't always respect the Warhammer canon, case in point the go fuck yourself bugs.
Look, I know what you mean, you know what you mean, but you have to say their actual name.
Zoanthropes, you happy now? Those brain bugs can eat shit it back out, reconsume said shit before shitting themselves again. I'm not bitter, fuck you. They are annoying to fight, they have inconsistent attacks that do a lot of damage, but worst of all, they can take a lot of damage, which, no, fuck no, that's not how they work. They're meant to be support units akin to psychic artillery, but they can take much damage onto Fuck, I think one just did psychic war with me. I'm just gonna reword that sentence because I keep tripping over it when I try to record it. It feels like they can take about the same amount of damage as a Carnifex. I swear, they don't even stagger, and shooting them in that massive brain of theirs doesn't seem to yield greater damage. They're just annoying bullet sponges and can fuck the fuck off.
Listen, as much as that Xenos filth is annoying, the Scarab Terminators. Look, I get that they're wearing Tartarus armor, but holy Emperor, why and how are they that fast? They shouldn't be able to move that quickly, stun locking me in a corner. It just isn't what they're meant to do. Nonetheless, really cool armor. Even cooler when I turn them into a pile of empty ceramite.
Ha, nerd. Yeah, alright, glass houses. Still though, for all the flaws, I don't hate the game. The core combat is enjoyable, there's generally a good balance to the enemies, fuck you bugs and Sandy Tobies notwithstanding, there's a good feel to the combat most importantly. The campaign mode itself you can play through alone or with friends, which is always nice to see, though it is only about 10 hours long, which is slightly shorter than I would have liked. Don't worry, we'll discuss my problems with the story shortly. Still, I can't deny that I had a pretty decent time.
A pretty decent time? What heresy?
Oh fuck off, Sander.
I said never use my name in public.
Either way, I hope your takeaway from this section is that whilst there are some areas where the game falls short, it's still a pretty fun time. It's well balanced enough that even someone as skill deprived as myself can make it to the end of a mission, and its systems and mechanics are designed to reward the type of behaviour they want to encourage in their players. Low on armour, execute a foe, get some back. Low on health, use your fury, or failing that, search the map for items, which can also lead you to audio logs, building some world in the process. See a heavy bolter, pick it up, all day long, Xenos have bad luck. If I was doing scores, I'd probably give the gameplay a 7 out of 10. You know, has issues, but it's still really good. And now for a substantially weaker portion of the game, let's shift our sights from the glorious gameplay to...
We're going to operate under the assumption that you all know enough of 40k lore, okay? Cause it's long, and we have limited time and focus. Ooh, hang on. Bear with, what are these?
Come on, don't get distracted. Ooh, something shiny in the background. Oh, no, sorry. Anyway, yeah, focusing on the story. Take it away, Ronica, which is me. 1 minus 1 is 0. Wait.
Come on, not literally. Never mind. I'll take command. You play as Demetrian Titus, a firstborn space marine that was a captain of the Ultramarine 2nd Company. But that bitch Leandros snitches on us to the Inquisition for being an absolute total badass. But no! He didn't see it that way. He thought it was heresy, so he decided to be a bitch-ass motherfucker.
Basically, Titus went to a planet, stopped some orcs, stopped some chaos, destroyed a chaos thing. His brother called him a chaos for touching the chaos thing. He then got arrested for doing chaos things, despite the fact that he did not in fact do chaos things. Okay, all caught up?
All this happened in the first game. Anyway, a few hundred years pass and we fight as a Deathwatch Black Shield. During the campaign's tutorial, we see Titus once again, but he gets brutally mauled at the end of the mission. Then he's saved by the Ultramarines and crosses the Rubicon Primaris, becoming a lieutenant as Captain Acheron is now in charge of the 2nd Company.
The story takes place in the Residian system during a massive Tyranid invasion. To sum up Tyranids if you don't know what they are, basically planet-eating space bugs. Got all that? Cool. The Ultramarine 2nd Company is deployed to aid in the defence of 3 worlds, Garadu, Kadaku and Avarax, as their strategic value is absolute. Starting to see a repeating pattern here. Not gonna lie, it did actually kind of make me smile. Callbacks are fun when used sparingly and properly. Looking at you, Star Wars, you dick. We deploy with Battle Brothers Sharon and Gadriel, who basically play the same roles as Sidonus and the Andros from the first game. One is a bit more laid back and go with the flowy, one is a stuck-up Ponce who starts out as a bit of a dick, but, throw be blessed, he doesn't end up telling on us like a little bitch marine.
He actually sticks up for us at the end, to be fair.
Yeah. Wasn't expecting that. I'm gonna be real though, from this point forwards, the plot isn't the most complicated thing. Basically, we fight Tyranids for a while alongside the Astra Militarum, then Space Marine 1 happens again. So if you remember the first game, you'll remember that there was an accursed power source that played a key role. It was basically made of warp stuff, you know, the 40k equivalent to hell. Titus destroyed it at the very end, it was very important. In fact, doing it nearly kills Titus and leads to one of my favourite exchanges in the game between him and Lieutenant Mira. Now, what do you think would be the most contrived way to go about telling the sequel to a decade-old
The power source returns.
Yeah, the power source returns because fuck original ideas, I suppose. The Adeptus Mechanicus, basically a bunch of humans from Mars who are cyborgs, tried to use the power source to close the Great Rift, a giant demon hole in reality that lets nasty warp stuff happen. But to absolutely no one's surprise except the dumb fuck trying this shit, it backfires, more chaos happen, then do a murder on him, and then we have to do a murder on them. The Tyranid storyline just sort of gets forgotten. Like, I kinda get it, dealing with an existential threat like the Tyranids is a long process and probably better reserved for the second half of a story. You know, like how the game Dawn of War 2 built up to the Tyranids throughout its entire runtime. Like, seriously, Space Marine 2, how are you getting this wrong? Although I suppose starting with the Tyranids lets the chaos be a surprise, at least to someone who's never touched Warhammer before. The rest of us saw this coming a mile away. By the grace of the throne, at least this time we get to face some cooler Chaos Space Marines, not the usual Black Legion or Word Bearers. No, this time we get the Thousand Sons, the Dusty Boys. Yep, they're living sand with ancient Egyptian themed armor. Look at these boys, they're boss. If I ever do end up collecting Chaos Space Marines, I'm probably going to get some Thousand Sons. Still, it doesn't take the story long to forget the Niddly Gribblies. By the end of Mission 2 they lose their billing as the big bad. Sure, they're still present and there's some focus given to them in the PvE mode, but it's genuinely quite tragic that my super hungry space bugs are so quickly forgotten. I love the Tyranids both visually and in terms of lore. There's just something so genuinely terrifying about a massive fleet of endlessly hungry space bugs that drift from planet to planet, consuming all the biomass in their path before moving on to their next prey. There's so little you can do, they're really hard to effectively defend against. They disrupt communications, mutate wildlife, and have a variety of horrific beasts suited to all manner of battlefield and espionage roles, so why did we ditch them for spiky boys? Damn it, Games Workshop, why do you be like this? It's a shame. Anyway, the actual plot is very easily summed up. Titus fights Tyranids, Titus discovers Chaos, Chaos happened more, and then we kill Chaos. The power source is doing what it did in the first game. Basically, it's a thing that will allow more chaos to happen, or less if later on you flip these totems over to close a portal that it's opening, but honestly, I found myself zoning out in these moments as they were just, well, honestly, just not that interesting. Don't get me wrong, there were some really cool visuals, but the actual plot is basically find 3 things, flip them over, and you win. It was a very compressed narrative. Things happened really rapidly with very little build-up or time to dwell on. In one mission, we revived this old warship to use it as a battering ram to destroy a big thing that was blocking our intergalactic comms, I suppose. But I had to ask my actual Warhammer buddy to help me recount the plot, because this game doesn't give us enough time to absorb what really went down. You know, aside from the long loading times, I guess. That's plenty of time to absorb what just happened. No shit, that's gameplay stuff. I forgot to mention that. Crap. Marine, quickly.
The load times are long. And that's shit.
Phew, that was close. I almost showed how incompetent I was. Titan, can you imagine an incompetent game reviewer? Pure hogwash. No, don't go look at IGN. The story is spread across 6 missions, and whilst they are an hour and a half each, very little actually happens within that time frame. Don't get me wrong, purging Xenos and Heretics is plenty of fun, and that is what you'll spend most of your time doing, but I'm really a slut for story, and I think the game just didn't perform as well as it could have in this department. There are some plot twists in the story, but if you've played the first game, they're not overly hard to predict. The return of the power source feels very contrived. This whole thing happens like 250 years after Space Marine 1, and fuck knows how many light years away from that original planet, but somehow this hell battery shows up again, because it's not like Warhammer is known for fucking awesome stories, is it? Oh wait, I know this sounds like I'm omitting some significant details, but to be honest, I'm really not. The story is very bare bones and not amazingly written, which sucks because Space Marine 1 had a pretty damn good story and some half-decent characters. Like Captain Titus. I mean, yeah, he wasn't the most complicated protagonist that there ever was, but there was more to him than Anki Space Marine number 42069. He was a relatively free thinker, not afraid to show his concern for the Astra Militarum soldiers, and even in the end showed his humanity. Too bad in Space Marine 2 we replaced Captain Titus with Lieutenant Titus. Hold on, let us explain. Titus, he's lost a few dimensions, our dear boy. He very much now is just Anki Space Marine number 42069.
In his defense, a lot has happened to him in between the games. Being frozen by a corrupted Inquisitor, being inducted into the Death Watch as a Black Shield, as he thought he brought shame to his chapter, and he has seen a lot of horrible shit the galaxy can throw at him. So it is kinda understandable that he's pretty much a grumpy old man dealing with a bunch of young Primaris Marines.
Oh, for sure, but my big problem is we didn't get to see any of this development. He just shows up 250 years later as a grumpy old fart and basically remains said grumpy old fart throughout the entire game, which I think doesn't do justice to my man Titus Mitus. Still, I don't hate the campaign story, I just feel like it's too short and doesn't really give us ideas time to breathe. The Chaos Big Bad just sort of exists. I mean, he looks cool, but he lacks flavour. His personality is basically, "Am Chaos, gonna tempt those Marine boys," and no, fuck, that's it. A Greater Demon of Zench appears later on, and I've got to say I am glad that it's not Khorne again, because Big Red Bloody Boy is cool but definitely overplayed, and seeing different types of Chaos Space Marines, the Thousand Sons, is fantastic. But the Greater Demon of Zench is basically just a gimmick in the final boss fight and then does nothing else. And the Chaos Marines themselves aren't actually that hard to defeat. I mean, the Terminators kind of are, but every other Chaos Marine you meet is actually stupidly easy. I've had harder times with the Tyranids, making me think more and more that the Tyranids definitely should have been relegated to the second half of the game. Oh shit, the final boss, yeah, we didn't mention that in the gameplay section either.
It's underwhelming.
Yeah, that. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's better than the final Nemeroth fight in the first game, but then again I've had kicks to the face that were more enjoyable than the Space Marine 1 bosses. But back to the story of Space Marine 2, it's very much like a cheap supermarket ready meal. I mean, yeah, it's technically food, but there are better options out there that probably won't have an old fishbone in it. And the thing is, I was eating toad in a hole, so where the fuck did the fishbone come from? But I think most people aren't going to be coming here to this game for the story. No, I think they're going to be here for a very different reason. So by the Emperor's decree, it's time for us to finally move on to...
Imperial Nazis assault our territory!
Yeah, fuck this. Nah, I kid.
Moving on to my favourite part of the game, the co-op modes. Holy terror. This slaps hard. It entwines with the main story, doing separate objectives that helps Titus and the boys out with their mission. That's boys with an S, not a Z. We're not orcs. These missions are quite fun, unique, and if you collect the right stuff, quite rewarding. Plus, you can customize your armor. We'll get back to that bit in a bit.
In the hub, you can select between the three modes, Operations, Campaign, and Eternal War, and all three have online functionality. You can play the entire campaign with your buddies if you so wish, which I like. I mean, I didn't use it, but it's a nice feature to have. You know, for you weird social people, you sickened me. As the Weird Space Marine said a minute ago, the Operations are missions that run parallel to the main campaign chapters. It can be boiled down to being just the campaign but slightly different objectives, but that's fine with me, that's all it needs to be, and I'm quite happy with it. Each mission has its own story weight, and to the game's credit, the characters that you actually play as in the Operations mode have a much better chemistry than the main trio. Don't get me wrong, their personalities are mostly bombastic Warhammer personalities, but they are more fun to listen to. And the best part, like my buddy just said, is that you can wear custom colours in this mode if you really want to, so if you're tired of being a blueberry, you can change to a different chapter or make a custom one. Yay, but hold on, there's a catch. First defense up front, you need to spend the in-game currency earned by playing multiplayer missions to unlock new colours. Yep, you heard me. So you get currency just by doing the multiplayer missions. Doing better of course gets you more currency, but you will still always end up with a decent amount at the end of a mission. These can be used to buy perks to improve your character, which is fine, and you will need them for higher difficulties, or it can be used to buy the colours and emblems of other chapters. That's already pretty annoying. Sure, the first game didn't let you be a custom or different chapter until you were level 5 in the multiplayer, but then when you hit that point you immediately had access to virtually every colour available in the tabletop. That's a lot of colours. You didn't have to unlock the colours themselves, because a big part of Warhammer is being able to paint your army the way you choose. Space Marine 2 lets you customise immediately, but you start with significantly less colours available, and they all have to be unlocked in a really inelegant fashion. Firstly, you have to press Heraldry, then go to a chapter symbol, then unlock the colours, emblems and decals you want one by one using your scarce in-game currency. Often that's something of a markup, and I don't know why this is the way they decided to do this. This is really clumsy feeling and it just irritates me. But for me it's all made worse by the fact that purple is a cunting DLC colour. Fuck you, Focus, you are dicks for this one. Both of my custom chapters make heavy use of purple, so I can't make my MB Marines or Brothers of Retribution. It's bad enough that you start out with barely any colours, but some of the colours can't even be applied to your main body. Some are stuck as trim colours, which annoys me even further because there's no goddamn reason this should be the way it works. So my ability to make a scheme that I'm actually happy with is reduced even more. Genuinely it annoys me not being able to purple myself up without forking out another 30 cunting quid. Sort of fucks with my desire to keep playing the game long term, which sucks ass because I loved the first game and I wanted to love this one, but I won't excuse where it falls short, and it definitely dropped the ball when it came to customization. You can't even use patterns properly. The Crimson Fisty Boys can't have a single crimson, well, you guessed it, nipple. No, wait. Line?
Fist.
Cyst.
Fist.
Gist.
Fist.
Horse.
Eat shit and die.
Your mother.
I despise your existence.
It'd be weird if you didn't. Anyway, this bit's not getting any funnier. Yeah, sorry, I was saying you can't even do patterns without unlocking the right to do patterns first, and I'm really not in the business of... Okay, usually I am in the business of spending way too long to unlock custom shit in a video game, but I really don't have it in me to go through that this time around. Sure, as I said, the original game made you be an Ultramarine until level 5, but once you hit level 5, the options were open. So honestly, this entire system feels like a massive downgrade. At least you can unlock new armor pieces just by playing the game. You know, if you're a loyalist. If you're a heretic, fuck you, you don't get that. Yep, the Chaos can't swap out different pieces of armor. The armor depends on the class you're playing as it mimics an existing legion, which is kind of a cute idea, but I'd honestly rather just have the option to swap things out. It also means that when I am playing as a Chaos Space Marine in the multiplayer mode, I feel considerably less attached to them because I can't unlock custom bits for them. You can still apply custom colours, but that's about it. It's a bit sad. Customization is one of my favourite things in a video game, and when it's done poorly, it's just upsetting. Anyway, before I black out, I better stop talking about the customization. Let's focus on the actual PvP side of PvP. Yeah, it's alright. It can be very hit or miss since the matchmaking is a bit shoddy. I was fighting people as high as level 17 on my very first match. Kinda tight, and I know I had to wait for the poor people release date to play the game, but do you affluent fuckers just not sleep? The actual matches aren't bad though. The game has a total of 6 classes for the player to pick from. You have the Tactical Boy, Jumpy Guy and Big Guns McGee from the first game.
Tactical, Assault and Devastator, to not use their stupid dumb names.
Of course though, on this go around the Devastator is called the Heavy, but it's the same basic class. The Tactical is your go-to gunman for general combat who can scan areas, increasing the damage taken by enemies in that area for a short time. The Heavy can generate a force field right in front of himself that blocks all incoming damage, and the Assault class gives you a jump pack and lets you get into melee with things. That's already a solid trio of options, but then...
There's the Vanguard class, which is fun if you get his main ability in the correct place. The bolter you use is great as well, but my absolute favourite is definitely the Assault. Once I got the hang of it, the jump pack works incredibly well. Comboing the ground pound with a power fist and plasma pistol is just a killer move, destroying all that stand in your way.
Yeah, the Assault class is really good, we all know that. This is supposed to be the new classes section. So next we have the Sniper class, whose default rifle may be crispy fried dicks going stale under the desert sun, but that stealth skill you get is super handy, and there are some cooler guns available once you prove you don't need them. And then finally we have my favourite, the Bulwark. It has a virtually impenetrable shield that if you hold up you block all damage coming in from one direction, and using its special ability you can provide armour to nearby allies. The classes all feel well balanced enough that I rarely saw one dominating a game, and there's a strict 2 classes per team limit, so you can't just all pick Heavy and turtle your way through all the fights. I do think there's room for improvement. It's sad that we don't get a Chaplain class, because a Chaplain model already exists in the game, so it wouldn't have been too hard, and I think there's a missed opportunity in not including an Apothecary, but still I like what we get. There are 3 modes for Eternal War: Annihilation, where 2 teams of 6 slaughter each other over and over again, but sadly the total score isn't 41 anymore, it's 50. Like a loser. It's the 41st millennia, let the score reference that. Terrible game, 0 out of 10, minus 10 out of 10, worst thing ever. I'm being dramatic.
Seize Ground is nice and simple as well. Just a command post game, similar to Star Wars Battlefront 2's Supremacy. Nothing more to be said.
Aside from the fact that this one is Warhammer themed and therefore is clearly superior.
My favourite PvP game mode, however, is Capture and Control. It's fairly straightforward as well. There's one objective to capture, hold it for a period of time, and then you move on to the next one. It keeps you on the move and stops people from camping in one area. Perfect experience.
Yeah, I think that about covers the PvP. Honestly, I think it's weaker than the PvE, but still kind of fun. I think it needs some extra maps and modes to really flush itself out, but apparently there's a road map of ideas. I will take that word seriously the same day the sun starts pissing purple lemonade. Sorry, just after a decade of live service games throwing the word around like the most unwanted baby there was, I see it as an omen, which kind of makes me think we need one more section. I just want to say that of all the roadmaps I've seen for video games, Space Marine 2 seems the least unachievable. All of the extra modes and missions will be added for free, as they fucking should be. It's just the cosmetics that are going to be held hostage. Sorry, paid extras for morons. No fuck, sorry, available with the season pass, that's what I meant to say. I mean, I'd argue that a game with a starting price of 70 cunting quid with an unfinished feeling campaign mode has no business asking for another 30 quid on top of that, but some people get weirdly defensive of their favourite corporate product, so I guess I'll hold my tongue. For Season 1 we're expecting a new sparring arena, some additional PvE missions, a new difficulty setting and a new weapon in the Neo Volkite pistol for Season 2. Season 3 will throw us another PvE mission as well as some new PvP game modes and arenas, a new enemy and whatever the fuck a Battle Barge expansion is. Then come Season 4 we'll have the awaited Horde mode plus a new enemy and weapon. I will say say, it better be a fucking amazing horde mode if it's nearly a year away, though fuck knows if I'll still be there to try it firsthand. I'm already sort of over the game now. Of course, the success of the roadmap will depend on the player base remaining loyal. I think there's a good chance. It is Warhammer after all, which has seen more mainstream love in the recent years, but the cynical part of me would argue that the game is currently unfinished and therefore should be judged as such.
Detecting a massive energy surge from within the Aurora facility.
Lose. He must be trying to use the device.
I know I've had some harsher words to say, but don't take away that I dislike Space Marine 2 because I actually do kinda like the game. It might be a very unfinished video game, but I didn't hate playing it. The gameplay is fun, the environments are awe-inspiring, the soundtrack is pretty solid, and we didn't even mention some of the more awesome set pieces the game employs, like letting you march alongside a Lehman Russ battle tank.
The motherfucking Giga Chadnaught. Holy Emperor's golden balls. This motherfucker literally shoved his heavy onslaught Gatling cannon inside a Hellroot and tore him to shreds. And not only that, the same badass saw a Helldrake and decided to throw a goddamn statue at it.
There was a Dreadnought, first time hearing of it. No, I'm joking, it was an amazing scene. The game does get set pieces really right. I loved watching the Helldrake swoop down and bathe areas in fire. Seeing that greater demon at its sheer size stomping around a battlefield was still great to see. The detail and the brutal executions of the Tyranids and traitors alike, and watching the sky become so full of Tyranids that you really get this sense of impending doom. The game absolutely nails its visual effects. It has so much eye candy my eyeballs' teeth fell out, then developed type 3 diabetes. Don't ask. There's not a bad game here. There certainly isn't a 70 quid game here. That's a bit of a hard sell on a good day, but if you like Space Marines and Warhammer, then maybe wait to see if it goes on sale or if you can pick it up pre-owned. Yeah, I know, I usually end up with this conclusion. It's just that 70 quid is a lot of money. That's like 2 weeks of groceries and the electric bills paid for me, and saying instead you should spend this on a video game feels really questionable, especially considering the half-baked story and the fact that the PvP has a fairly underwhelming selection of modes and maps to pick from, but hey, I mostly enjoyed my time with the game. I think when all is said and done, it is a decent game that just needs a lot of work. Even bringing on my Warhammer money to try and keep me hyped up didn't really work. I guess there really is no cure for being a cynical little bitch. But that, friends, enemies and entities, brings us to the end. I want to thank my friend Taylor, who does Warhammer stuff on Instagram, linky in the description and on screen right now if you want to see his models, which you should by the way. They're good, he's got a very good colour scheme. Look at these boys, they're little Iron Men. So yeah, I want to say a big thank you for your help with the script and the voice work.
You're welcome, it's been fun.
Of course I'm not going to because I'm a douchebag.
Why must you ruin good things?
Because I'm British, that's like our main go-to. With all that said though, thank you as well, viewer, for being here and watching this video. I really appreciate it. If you did like this video, then why? Titan help you. No, I kid. Do consider leaving a like and maybe a comment or subscribing to appease the almighty YouTube gods. Until next time, my dears, take care, I love you all, and I ate one of your lunches, I forget whose. See you next time.